The moment I walked into the hallway, something shifted inside me. It wasn't loud. There were no raised voices, no crashing sounds, just a sudden stillness that wrapped itself around the air like a thick fog. My heart picked up its pace, not out of fear, but from something I couldn't yet name. You know when your body recognizes something before your mind catches up? That's what it felt like. A heaviness in my chest, a tingling at the back of my neck. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just walking. But then I saw them, my stepson and my daughter, together. Too close, frozen, as if the world had stopped mid-breath. I couldn't even process it right away. My brain scrambled for context, for some innocent explanation. Maybe he was comforting her. Maybe she had just tripped and he'd caught her. Maybe I was overthinking, reading too much into a moment. But even as those excuses rushed in, my stomach sank lower. It wasn't what I saw, it was what I felt. The tension, the suddenness with which they stepped apart, the way they both couldn't meet my eyes. I knew that kind of silence. It was the kind that spoke in volumes louder than any words. My eyes locked with hers just for a second, and I saw something I hadn't seen in her since she was little. Fear. Not fear of punishment, but fear of being known. As if I had glimpsed something in her she hadn't meant to reveal. And him. He looked away first. He, who always joked and smiled and filled the room with ease, suddenly looked like a stranger, trying to remember how to breathe. The rest of the world faded. The house, the ticking clock in the kitchen, even the sunlight pouring in through the window, all of it went quiet. All I could hear was the pulse in my ears. That moment sat like a boulder on my chest. It didn't scream. It whispered. It didn't accuse. It begged not to be true. And still, without saying a word, something in me broke. Something sacred had shifted. Not because of what they did, but because of what I saw, and what it forced me to feel. There's an unspoken trust that forms when you blend two families together. It's fragile, like a glass sculpture balanced on a shelf, beautiful but always at risk of falling if someone isn't careful. I worked hard to build that trust, to create a home where everyone felt safe, where love was not divided but multiplied. He wasn't just my husband's son. Over time, he became a part of us, part of me. I cooked for him, listened to his stories, laughed at his silly jokes, and celebrated his small victories like they were my own children's. My daughter had always been the quieter one, private, a little guarded, but she looked up to him, trusted him. He made her laugh in ways I hadn't seen in years. I never imagined that bond could blur into something else. That day cracked the foundation I'd worked so hard to build. It wasn't about anger, not at first. It was disbelief. My mind raced, not just with what I saw, but with everything it could mean. How long had this been going on? Where had I gone wrong? Was I blind, or did I just not want to see? Every memory I had of the three of us sitting together at the dinner table, every photo hanging on our living room wall, suddenly felt like a lie. Like they had been performing while I sat there believing in a version of us that never existed. There are boundaries in every family, lines that should never blur, no matter how close people grow. And this wasn't just about broken rules, it was about shattered roles. A stepson and a daughter are supposed to be siblings in every sense that matters. When those lines vanish, when something sacred is crossed, the entire fabric of trust starts to unravel. I looked at them and couldn't unsee what I saw. The betrayal wasn't in a kiss or a touch. It was in the betrayal of what we were supposed to be to each other. He wasn't just someone she shouldn't have been close to like that. He was someone I trusted to protect her, to protect our home. When that trust shattered, it didn't just break one relationship, it sent cracks through every wall of our family. Everything became delicate. Every word, every glance, every silence had weight. The light in the hallway was soft, almost golden, spilling through the curtains as if the house had no idea it was about to become a different place forever. I remember the sound of the floor under my feet, how each step echoed louder than the last. The house was quiet, too quiet, and not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of silence that makes you listen harder, that makes your heart speed up for reasons you can't explain yet. And then I saw them, standing so close, not touching, not speaking, but everything about their posture screamed of something that shouldn't be there. She looked over his shoulder at me first. Her eyes widened, not in surprise, but in that haunted, guilty way you never want to see on your child's face. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to speak but forgot how. He turned slower, stiff, like his body knew what was coming before his mind did. The way they moved apart, hesitant, slow and overly careful, said more than any words could. That space between them, once casual and innocent, now felt heavy, charged, wrong. The air was different, thicker. Like every breath I took was filled with something sour I couldn't name. My skin prickled. I remember the hum of the refrigerator, from the kitchen, the distant sound of a car passing outside. But it all felt muted under the weight of that moment. My daughter's hands fidgeted at her sides, and my stepson rubbed the back of his neck like a boy who knew he'd been caught doing something unforgivable. But no one spoke. There were no confessions, no explanations, just silence. And that silence said everything. It said regret. It said secrets. It said they knew they had crossed something they couldn't come back from. It felt like the walls were listening, like even the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. My feet felt like they were stuck in cement. I couldn't cry, couldn't yell, couldn't move. The worst part wasn't what I saw, it was the knowing. That gut-deep certainty, born not of logic but of instinct, that something sacred had been breached. And the truth of it hung in the air like a thick fog, impossible to ignore, impossible to forget.